Today's Toy Spot, we are having a look at the Marvel Legends Dormammu wave. We're finally looking at the Build-A-Figure Dormammu. Yes, this was actually a notable longer series of figure reviews, as this particular wave actually had a fair number of figures versus possibly some of the more shorter waves we've looked at before. The end result, though, gave us this guy right here. We're going to be looking at him in a separate video. This video, actually, you're watching right now. Now, I have to note and preface this. I'm still having a tough time getting this leg in place. It doesn't make it easy that the skirt is slightly impeding my vision from actually pegging this into place. I can get the leg in place, but then ever so often you bump it, the leg wants to pop out. I'm not going to necessarily criticize the figure as a whole, just simply because I can't get the leg in. I can get the leg in. It's just going to involve a little bit more finagling, so to speak. But there you have Dormammu, leg aside. The only thing I really have not included in this video review is actually the skulls that came included with Carl. Again, you can fit them in his hand, but being that they're not really intended to ever be held in hand, that they were originally Marvel Legend heads, they don't sit the greatest in his hands. A much more favorable option for me is giving him the fire attachments as a much more preferred look. I just think they look a little cooler. But that's, you can either go this route, you can go this route, you can even go either or and maybe have one of each. It's entirely up to you. Let's have a look at his face sculpt, and then again we'll have a look at the rest of the figure as a whole. If you could call it a face sculpt, actually his face is pretty cool. There's not really much color, granted it's only primarily black. It's kind of got the same vein as a Ghost Rider. Although Ghost Rider tends to have a little more details, being that he's got the defined notions of a skull, Dormammu more so comes across like just a vacant mask. I do like, though, that there's a translucency, try not to bang the camera, there's that translucency of the flame that's actually being visible through not only his eyes, but also through his mouth. So I like that. I also do like that there's a slight, it's not like a definitive cut-off line between his mask or his face and the back flame. Instead, actually, it's more of just jaggedness, like this is a front burned part to the scorched flame behind it, or like the continued burning flame behind it. The figure is good. No, again, necessarily any complaints from just a very general standpoint. If you look at it from closer aspects, there are things you could nitpick. One thing I did mention in, I believe, Enchantress's review is that the areas in which it's this cranberry paint, the cranberry metallic color, it comes across a little goopy, heavily painted. Again, nothing's really missing. There's no paint that's omitted. I don't see really any gaps where I see the purple underneath, but it comes across just a little on the splotchy side. That carries down to the area of his front skirt. And I guess I want to just bring this up, because if not, you see a real dividing line between the top and the bottom. Once again, this leg. This leg actually wasn't so bad pegging in. I wish they actually would go the route of larger pegs on both sides, rather than not use I mean, this smaller socket suits better, I think, for arm pegs rather than leg pegs, because you're just forcing it all the time. I'm trying to get it in there. Like, again, it doesn't really, applying pressure as I may, I might actually just try to lift the skirt and just force that right in there. One thing I do have to mention is that the legs come across stumpy. I started feeling that as I was building this figure, that the top half, and this is always something with Marvel Legends, the top half reads fine, other than like the skirt not sitting properly here. Like the torso, from the torso up, is good, but it always seems like if anything could be the shortcoming, no pun intended, to a Marvel Legend, it generally is the legs. This is the same thing that I had the issue with that one body mold that they've used for Anti-Venom, they've used for Venom, they've used for Sabretooth. It's that short, stocky leg. And I feel like Dormammu almost has the equivalent of that, obviously just a little bit bigger. Like I wish his legs would just maybe like half, maybe just like a half, maybe about like that much more, that it gave him some necessary lift. He still towers over other figures. Let's say, for example, let's bring in Doctor Strange. He still towers over a character such as Doctor Strange, but he's got really thick calves. Really thick calves. That those should have been tapered off, I think, a little bit better, so it was a much thinner calf as you got to the bottom. Not just continue with the same thickness, because it ends up making the figure's legs look like tree trunks. The back of the figure, that's what it looks like right there. Love the metallic color. I'm not really sure why this paint is off the way it is. It almost looks like somebody was spray painting and then just went over one more time and just left this big strip of purple right across the collar and shoulder area. I don't know why it's like that. But I like the metallic purple that they've used for the most part. This is actually a very similar purple, and I mentioned this before as well. It's a very similar purple to the Toy Biz Sentinels, even though the Sentinels I think were a little darker in color. But the color reads very nice, and I wouldn't be surprised if they use this for future figures because it's such a great purple. Poseability, here we go. Poseability on Dormammu. His head is on a ball joint. I have no issues there. Waist swivel, upper torso crunch. Pretty much everything you've seen with the Marvel Legends over this series of reviews. Same thing could be said for Dormammu. You know, again, bicep swivel. Single bend at the elbow rather than a double bend. Rotation in the wrist, also the hinge there. The legs would, again, move forward and back. It's so frustrating. Just make the same peg, Hasbro. Don't use a thin and a thick. I know there's idiots like myself who've put the wrong leg in the wrong spot, but you know what? Don't use thin pegs to try to mount a foot. You have the top swivel cut of the thigh, a double hinge knee. I might as well just take the leg off. Double hinge knee, a swivel right at the boot area. And then even though it is slightly hindered by the covering or the plate over, I don't know what you would call that, a boot covering. Even though it's covering over the foot, it does limit motion up and down on the foot, but you can still get a pretty decent hinge back and forth, that pivot. Let's put the leg back into place. We'll just kind of prop him up. Stay together, Dormammu, stay together. Feelings of the figure. I'm going to kind of have to just angle him down for the second. Feelings of the figure's sculpt is good. Paint it, for the most part, is good. It's a little sloppy here in the front. Paint's pretty good. I wish, though, they would get away from using tree trunk calves. Like, really note that a figure's leg should start tapering as it gets closer to an ankle, not continue to go straight down. The figure's legs could be a little bit longer. Don't like the tree trunk style thickness that they've given the legs. But despite all that, and even though it sounds like I'm really nitpicking the figure, and despite the fact I'm still struggling to get the leg in place, the figure is actually really good. And one of my notable favorites of recent memory for the Build-A-Figure waves. They just gotta fix certain things that I always continue to see on these figures, but hopefully we'll never ever, I don't think, get away from the tree trunk legs. And certainly, you know what, let's try to get this leg in place. This is driving me bananas. I'm sure it's driving you guys bananas by seeing me constantly trying to fix the leg. That's just, there we go. I might even just glue it in place. If you have any issues with this leg, let me know down below. I know I could probably just really just force it right on there, but I didn't want to break the peg, especially one of the other issues with the peg being so thin. I didn't want to break the peg in the process of trying to force the leg on. But there, if he can stand, is Dormammu. I know I haven't presented him the greatest of ways right now, but for the most part, I do really like the figure. Just don't like the leg area. All right, so let's have a look at the figures that made up this wave. I always try to do this, not usually with such a poor-looking constructed figure, but nonetheless, some of my favorite figures from this wave. I have to actually admit, my favorite figures from this wave are probably my first two figures that we looked at in this wave itself. That being Enchantress And reaching off camera, that being Nico. I think these two are probably the best figures, in my personal opinion. Now, again, you know, if you disagree, that's perfectly fine. Originally, I did think that Iron Fist was a good figure. Like, kind of the more hands-on I am with the figure itself, I just feel like he's too lanky. He's just absolutely too lanky. Bad choice of build. Like, he's just too thin. And even though the construction, there he is again, even though the construction of him is poor, the figure is good, but I can't give him a pass and say he's the best figure, or even like the third best figure in this wave, just because of the way he's put together. Like, just bad sculpt. I guess bad body mold. Just trying to think of other figures. I guess really movie Doctor Strange, I would say, is the third favorite figure from this line. So there you go. Enchantress. Second runner-up, I would say, is Nico. And third runner-up, I would say, is movie Doctor Strange. If you've picked up this line for yourself, certainly let me know down below what you think of this line. Also, let me know if you had any problems with getting this leg into place. Just a thick peg. That's all I ask, Hasbro. Just a thick peg. At any rate, if you guys are interested in picking this guy up for yourself, the entire wave that you looked at in this video, certainly click the link down below, and you can order these today from Entertainment Earth. Oh, I did actually get the leg in place. How about that? After all it's said and done, I actually did get it in place. I guess it's because I gave up on it. The leg said, you know what? He's been through enough. Let's just go into the joint. We can do that. That's the least we can do for this guy. But if you guys are interested in picking this guy up for yourself in the entire wave, head over to Entertainment Earth today, as they currently have these guys in stock. Today's Toy Spot, we were looking at the final figure. Let's move the carcass of Doctor Strange out of the way. We're looking at the Build-A-Figure from this wave, Dormammu himself. Stay tuned. Even though, again, Spot's finished all these video reviews of at least Dormammu's wave, certainly stay tuned. More videos are heading your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time. Just one little bit that I want to tack on to the end of this video. I know you're thinking to yourself, where's the rest of Dormammu? I just took the torso off for a second because I found an easier way, and I'm sure something that a lot of you guys were screaming at during the course of this video. Why didn't you just do this? Sure enough, take the skirt section, and again, the torso is over here. Take the skirt section, and you can pop the lower torso completely off. This makes things a lot easier when it comes to adding the legs, because once you've added the legs, you simply can just slide the skirt over top. I know in this video, Spot struggled trying to get this leg on, and if I had simply just added this on first, added the legs on first, and then added the torso, I probably would not have had any of the issues that I was currently experiencing. So if you have picked up this figure for yourself, what I would probably suggest that you do is pop this out from the skirt, add your legs, add the skirt on top, then add the torso on top of that. It'll make things a whole lot easier. See you guys next time.